Rio 2 is up nearly threefold in the past year. This month, the company closed an eye-popping $23 million financing, and the first gold pour at its Fenix gold operation could come as early as 2025. Executive Chairman is Alex Black. Alex, welcome to Kitco.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks for having me here.
Alex, your flagship is the Fenix Gold Project. What is it and what's the work done today?
Well, Fenix Gold currently is the largest undeveloped gold oxide heap leach project in the Americas. It's a project that's located in the Atacama region of Chile, about 160 kilometers east of Copiapó. And it was discovered back in 2010 by a company called Atacama Pacific. Atacama Pacific drilled some pretty spectacular holes back then. Went for a big ride, but then after 2 or 3 years going into 13, 14, as the metal price started to come down, they lost momentum. And at the end of the day, we approached them back in 17 and did a deal with them in 18 to acquire their company. And because we've got a track record of mine building, we saw lots of characteristics in that project that suit what our experience is. And we did a deal, and since then we've put together an EIA, and we're in the permitting process now and in the financing process now.
No, Alex, in 2022, the company's enviro permits were rejected.
Yeah, they were. And that was a big shock to us and a big shock to the mining industry in general in Chile, because we were in the wrong place at the wrong time. We were going through our adjudication of our EIA when the new government in Chile came into power in about April of 2022. And, their mandate was not very friendly towards mining at that point. And it was interference. Bottom line is, and there's a big story here, but I'm not going to go into the detail, but the bottom line is that it was interference from the federal government in a regional case. All EIAs in Chile happen regionally and are adjudicated regionally, not federally. So anyway, when that happened, we went into a appeal process, which was a committee of ministers. Unfortunately, that committee of ministers doesn't have a time mandate. So when we entered that process, we just didn't know how long it was going to take. And as it was, it took 18 months. And that, for a company like us, junior company, one asset company, it killed us. I mean, our share price went from 60 cents before the announcement to 10 cents, and then we flatlined across. We pushed really hard. We had lots of help from a couple of lobby groups in Chile. We validated our case that, in fact, we did nothing wrong. We didn't have to do extra work. The issue that the government brought up with respect to chinchillas was incorrect. And that's what the Committee of Ministers found. And we were allowed to go forward. They made a decision in December. And since December, we had the official decree received about 3 weeks ago when we announced the financing that we just did. And now we're in the permitting process. And permitting is very much a bureaucratic process. So we from our experience, think it's going to take 3 or 4 months to complete. And that coincides with the financing we're doing as well.
Bring us up to date then on this support for the government as well as the community, Alex.
Yeah, well, it was interesting. During that whole process of being in front of the Committee of Ministers, we had community on our side. Our communities were lobbying the government to get this project approved. We had business on our side in Copiapó. The Atacama region in Chile has one of the highest unemployment rates of the whole of the country. So there was a lot of pressure put on by external parties. And, I always say that social is the key to any mining project. You better have everything buttoned down from a social perspective. We did. We started that back in 2018 when we acquired the project, and it paid off for us because the community actually were a big part of the lobby for this project to go ahead. And funnily enough, we're now a priority project in Chile. We are a priority mining project to be developed, and there's a lot of emphasis to push our project forward through the permitting process and get this project up and running.
There's some water infrastructure that is being built near you. What is it, and why is it important to Fenix?
Yeah, there's a project, and it's a joint venture. It's called ENIPAC, and it's a joint venture between an Israeli company called Soler, and also a Spanish company. Soler specializes in desal plant construction and distribution of desal water. The Spanish company, I don't have their name at the moment, but they specialize in solar energy, and they're teaming up to build a third-party desal project which will provide water to third parties like ourselves on a unit cost basis. Right? There's a cubic meter of water. It's going to cost X dollars, and that project right now is in the final stages of EIA approval. We don't imagine there's going to be any issues there because this follows the mandate of the government and also the environmental lobby in Chile is to stop companies from pulling water from the ground and using desal or seawater in the process rather than water from the ground. So it's a project that probably, in our guess, and we're going to know more of this year because we're going to do a expansion study later on this year. But what it's going to do for us is give us access to water to be able to expand our project from what it is today, which is a 20,000 tonne a day order pad scenario, producing about 100,000 ounces of gold per annum, to something of the size of about 80,000 tonnes a day, so 4 times bigger, and producing somewhere between 250 and 300,000 ounces per annum for at least 10 years. So that leap puts us in a world-class league from the point of view of the production that we'll be outputting from Fenix Gold.
That depends upon working out arrangements with the water provider, correct, Alex?
Yeah, and that's going to fall in place. We're estimating they probably will have all of that infrastructure available in 3 to 4 years' time. And so we dovetail our operations with that. At the moment, we're trucking water to the project. We've told everybody that's not optimal, but it's built into our cost analysis, our feasibility study that we finished in September of last year. It works. It's not something you want to do forever. We could do it for 17 years because that's the mine life of the 20,000 tonne a day case at $1,650 gold, but we don't want to do that. So obviously tying into a longer term water solution is the way to go.
Now, Alex, you're based in Lima. Last week, you were in Toronto talking about the company to investors and stakeholders. You told Paul Harris, our other anchor here at Kitco, that your $23 million raise was a delightful surprise. Can resource companies raise funds more easily in this environment, just with gold hitting all-time highs?
Well, I think you have to have the stars aligned. It's got to be management, project, shareholders. The thing that blew me away, and I've been on this side of the fence. I've been in the mining industry for more than 40 years, but on the corporate side or on the miner side for the last 25 years, and I've never done a financing like this. We started off with a target of $8 million Canadian to raise. That would see us through from now till September. We're estimating that September is when we will do our next financing in respect to the construction financing for the project. So $8 million was the target. I went back to 8 Capital, who led the deal, said, look, I think I can do 3 to 4 from existing shareholders and insiders. I said, fine, go ahead and see if you can get that in the book. So I started ringing up existing shareholders, and within a couple of days, my order book was nearly $17 million from existing shareholders. So that blew me away, particularly because those existing shareholders had been through the crappy times that we've just been through with regards to the negative response to our EIA. But they were there in droves, and there was, that much demand for it. And so we tacked on a bit more money for new shareholders, and we ended up with, $23 million. So it was quite amazing. I don't know, once again, I think you have to have, the right management team doing the right thing with the right project. And obviously during that week too, the gold price started to accelerate and rise, and maybe we were in the right place at the right time for a change.
Now, you said that there's interest in the company. There's been a number of transactions. I don't have to tell you, Alex, in the resource space. What's been notable to you regarding this current spate of M&A?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think it's late because, M&A should have, I've been a proponent of M&A because I just believe there's too many companies out there in the resource space, and particularly in the gold space. But anyway, yeah, it's starting to happen, probably later than I would have thought it should have happened. And the philosophy of buying low and selling high is something that obviously fits into the equation. Yeah, look, I mean, and even us, once we got our EIA approval in December, we've had, inbounds from corporates that we never spoke to before, who are obviously looking and curious about, this 5 million ounce deposit in Chile, doable, run-of-mine gold oxide heap leach. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how things play out. We're not for sale. I mean, we built 2 of these mines before in a previous iteration, which was Rio Alto from 2009 to 2015. We built Rio Alto up from a company that was worth $12 million in 2009 to a company that was taken out by Tahoe Resources in 2015 for $1.2 billion. So, what I keep telling people is we're mine builders, but we also know how to exit. And now's not the time for us to exit. I mean, we wouldn't do that because we've got a lot of value we can create here. We've got to get that second stage project up and running. And then who knows what's going to happen, and who knows what the gold price environment or the appetite from bigger guys will be at that time. But yeah, we've done it before.
We've seen Cobre Panama, that First Quantum's mine, come offline, which is having global impacts upon copper prices. Alex, you spent a long time in South America. At the beginning of the interview, we were talking about your own challenges with Fenix in terms of getting your regulations right. Can you talk a little bit more about social license and kind of getting that right where you operate? Because it's really something that has come to the fore in, I guess, globally.
Yeah, social license, I can't iterate that more than I normally do in respect to LATAM. I mean, Latin America, social is the key to everything. And in the case of Cobre Panama or First Quantum, I would be surprised if they didn't have the social side of their business sorted and have the buy-in at the local level. But what you find in LATAM is you have local support, and then you have rings of other interested parties. And the further you go away from the project, most of those interested parties are anti-mining. And so in the case of Cobre de Panama, what I see happen there was that there seemed to be buy-in at the local level, but then there was this big push outside of that area of influence against mining, which then went up to the government, and that started the whole issue there for First Quantum. Typically, in my experience, particularly here in Peru, is government can be positive or negative towards mining in a general sense, but it's really what you do on the ground at the community level. In the case of Chile, we had a very similar case to Cobre de Panama, except it wasn't environmental groups that went up against us and supported by the government. It was actually the government that interfered in the process and decided there wasn't going to be a new mine built at that time. So, it's a fine balance, but you need to have that down pat. And one of the things that we pride ourselves in is that we've got a great Latino team at Rio 2. It's in fact the same team that did Rio Alto. They all came with me once I left Rio Alto back in 2015, 2016. And we've done it twice before, at La Reina and Shahuindo here in Peru, and we've successfully done it at Fenix Gold in Chile. So it's all about being focused and spending a lot of time to make sure you get that right.
Alex, how bad is the water situation generally for miners? You talked about having a potential water solution to you through a desalination plant. We seem to see more reports about solar and that being actually able to use for using desalination. How big a threat is water issues to mining, and also is tech going to rescue us?
Well, yeah, look, I mean, water is an issue in a lot of places around the world, and particularly where we are in the Atacama Desert, which is one of the driest places in the planet. Look, obviously you just got to move with the times. And in Chile, the mining industry has moved itself away from sourcing groundwater for their mining operations and have built desal projects. But they're mainly the big companies, the Chuquicamadas, the Escondidas, et cetera. Candelaria, for example, which is just to the south of Copiapó, which is a regional town near to our project, they have their own desal projects as well, and desal supply. So, yeah, desal is a solution. There are copper mines also looking at direct seawater. I mean, and that works for some projects. So that's nice because you don't have to treat it or spend any money on. All you have to do is pump it up to the project. Is there technology? I don't know. I mean, I don't know of any technology that can fabricate water out of, air or something like that. If there is, it's probably really expensive right now. So I think desal all around the world is a solution, and also for drinking water for many countries around the world that are facing, water issues. So, yeah, look, you've got to move with the times. For us, it's going to be desal, and it will come hopefully through this third-party ENERPAC that I mentioned before.
Obviously that we're seeing copper as well as gold start to move. Investor interest seems to be growing, and then we also see some equity prices starting to move. Any general advice that you would give, or any North Star, or any that you would look at in terms of this upswing in the commodity sector, Alex?
No, it's really hard putting yourself, like us, a developer, in the right place at the right time with all these positive upswings in commodity prices and precious metal prices. So, it's tough because we could be developing and we could be on a downswing of the gold price, and that would work against us. So, what I see. And I don't know where the gold price is going. I mean, I'm a CEO of a mining company. I'm not a predictor of gold and the price of gold. But if you look at where gold's been, from 2013 to 2019, it was sort of around $1,250 on average. It then jumped up from about 20 to 2023. It was in that order of 1850. And now, are we finding a new base plus 2,000? I think so. But where? I don't know. And we're living in interesting times, as you know, from the point of view of the fiscal situation all around the world. debt situation, supply of money, et cetera, et cetera. So, I think we're in the right place at the right time at the moment. And we just got to make hay as the sun shines and run as fast as we can and get ourselves to production, get our project built, financed and built, and the rest will fall into place.
I was meaning more, Alex, kind of, sorry for the way I phrased it. I was meaning kind of more of a framework. I was just interested because, you've been in the guts of it right now, but if you're using your hat, you're using your analytical hat, and then you're looking at other resource names or other companies, do you start with the resource itself that the company has? Do you look at management? Have they done this before? Are you looking at what their finances have? All of the above is what's your checklist right now when you're going down and then you're looking at a particular resource company?
Well, obviously, what's in the ground?
Yeah.
Who are the guys who are going to execute and deliver on what they're saying they're going to do? And thirdly, like I said before, social. What's the social environment around where they are, and how quick can they develop a project? I mean, even when you see projects in Nevada and Arizona and places like that, they take 5 to 7 years to get off the ground because of the permitting processes, et cetera. That's not a social issue, but you need to take that into consideration. If you look at what we've been through, I mean, we started 2018 and here we are, 6 years later, we should be in gold production by the end of next year. So that's 7 years. So all those sorts of things, when you buy into a company like us that's not a producer, you've got to say to yourself, well, I'm not buying it for now. I'm buying for what it's going to look like in 6 to 7 years, or a potential takeout. Takeouts, it depends on the asset as to what happens from a takeout perspective. So I really believe, the three things I mentioned before, the deposit, the people, and the social aspect of the project is key.
Lastly, Alex, you say you're going to be in production soon. What's going to be the milestones over the next 12 months?
Yeah, so we're working with Endeavour Financial right now. We've been with them for the last 12 months or so, and we've received expressions of interest for a number of funds and banks in the order of, most of the offers are in the order of $100 to $120 million US for this project. Our current requirement is for about 110 million US. So it's more than we need. But what will happen is that these funds and banks will want cost overrun facilities so that they'll want to lend you more than what you actually need to make sure that you do get there at the end of the day. So we're in that process now. We plan to have our financing solution in place in August. At the same time, we've got the permitting happening that I mentioned before. That'll be finished in about August. And so if there is any equity that needs to be raised, and I'm sure it's not going to be a lot of equity, given the numbers I've just mentioned to you, we're looking at September for an equity raise and fully financed, ready to go. And when that happens, because we already were in pre-construction here back in 2022, and I asked people to go and have a look at our presentation on our website, which shows all that. We are anticipating we'll be in first gold production late Q3, early Q4 next year. So it's very quick. It's a very quick project, and we will be cash flowing towards the end of next year. So that's the key timelines.
Alex, thanks for your time.
Appreciate it.
My name is Michael McRae. You're watching Kitco Mining.